You probably can hear my dove in the background, by the way. I'm sure he's cooing up a storm. Did you know that doves can laugh? I was just a little kid. Like, I was just... I mean, I was cringy, but we all were. I was just a little kid who liked Pokemon and, like, fucking drawing, stuff like that. I was a pretty healthy kid. The thing that actually ended up sending me in there was tonsillitis infection. And, like, kids get tonsillitis all the time, you know? Like, kids are fucking dirty. They get sick all the time. They get tonsillitis, whatever. And usually, like, the only thing to really fix tonsillitis if you keep getting it recurring is to, you know, cut them out. And my mom is, like, hearing me, like, wheeze in the middle of the night. You know, just average run-of-the-mill stuff. When your tonsils get too big, you can't really breathe when you're sleeping. My mom just noticed something was up, and she said, like, we're gonna have to take you to the doctor and figure this out, see if we can get him removed. So I do remember a few things about the procedure, and the weirdest things are, like, it very could be fake because of stress. Like, one of the only things I remember from it were talking to an anesthesiologist, you know, like someone who provides anesthesia for kids, and I remember vividly, and again, I've asked my parents about this, and they're like, that's ridiculous, that you made that up, like, there's no way that happened. I remember interacting with the anesthesiologist, and he gave my dad a pill for no reason. And I just remember that vividly. Like, why is he giving my dad a pill? It could have been like I was experiencing a lot of stress. You know, when you're a kid, like, your memories will get mixed in with other things or other feelings. I do remember getting sedated, only because it was such a, like, tactile memory. I think they make it smell good. And that sounds weird, but, like, I just remember the vivid smell of, like, cinnamon just hitting me when I had this mask put on me, you know, the thing that you breathe with, and then just nothingness. Like, it's weird to recall that. All I remember from after the surgery was, I don't remember going home, but I remember waking up. I was looking in the sink, and I wasn't coughing, but I was just, like, spitting out little drops of blood, and I was like, what is this? I woke up my parents, and according to them, I don't remember any of this, according to them, they sent me to the hospital, and the hospital said, it's fine, like, they just have a little bit of bleeding. You guys can go back home and you're safe to go home. And then the next night, it was really bad. Like, I woke up and I just remember, like, spitting blood into the sink, and it's like, it's so crazy because it's like, I don't even remember that drive. I don't remember getting in the hospital. It's like little fragments of memory. Being in a bed alone with my parents surrounding me, them giving me the bucket. And do you mind if I get graphic? This is really fucking graphic. You'll definitely have to put a content warning on this one. I threw up, but it was so much into the bucket, like, and it wasn't vomit. It was black. It was black and red. And when you throw up blood like that and it's black, that's really bad. That usually means, like, internal bleeding, or, you know, just, I was hemorrhaging. I was swallowing the blood that was coming from my throat, and I was puking it up because, well, the human body, like, rejects blood, so if you swallow enough, you'll get sick. But I'll just never forget that. And it's funny, because it's just like, there's so many bits and pieces of the puzzle that I miss, but that memory, the worst one, had to stay with me. You feel me? Like, the worst one of the whole experience had to stay with me, and then just seeing that blood. What is that gonna do to, like, a 5-year-old's brain? Like, I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was dying. So, you know, how am I supposed to react in that situation? And then everything else that happened after that was just a blur, and then it just followed me through life, and I didn't realize something was really wrong until a few years ago, actually. We weren't sure what happened, but this has happened to people before, and basically what it is they cut your tonsils out, and then sometimes on accident they'll scrape a little bit inside your throat, and that will cause bleeding. Or they mess up with, you know, whatever tools they're using, and they cut you on accident. I think the most insulting thing to me was that after I had hemorrhaged and I was starting to get better and we left, they told me that it was a nosebleed. Listen, I don't think you fucking need a blood transfusion for a nosebleed. Like, you're not gonna be 5 years old, like, bleeding to death in an emergency room because you have a nosebleed. Like, it's your fault. Like, they did not own up to it.
What did your parents think was happening?
Well, they didn't believe the nosebleed thing, that's for sure. They did not know what was going on. They were really scared. And, like, to have, like, everyone worried about you and have their eyes on you like that was really confusing, because it's like, adults are always supposed to be the people in charge, right? So, like, when you see your parents scared like that, you don't know how to comprehend it as a kid, because it's like, what's going on with me? Like, why is this happening to me? I remember this one time vividly. I think I was like about 7 years old. My mom wasn't feeling well, and I just remember sitting on my bed, feeling sick myself and thinking, like, how am I gonna survive this? I really don't want to get sick. What's going on? For the longest time, I had assumed that, and so had my parents, that this was just an irrational phobia. It's actually got a name. It's called emetophobia. And lots of people have it. It's just a phobia that means you're afraid of vomiting. In 2017, imagine you're me, you've had dealt with something you had assumed was a phobia for like so many years. And it was Christmas Eve, and I got food poisoning, and like, you know, that's a normal run-of-the-mill thing to happen. But I had just a complete freak out. Like, I've never been... Okay, yeah. That's awesome, dude. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. I had probably the worst, like, episode of my life. You know, I vomited. It's like, it's a normal part of life. Everybody gets sick. But I just didn't know what was going on. I was dissociating. I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember my mom being there, and I'm yelling at my mom, take me to the hospital, take me to the hospital. And it's like, you know... If your friend was doing that to you, you'd be like, bro, calm down. You're like 18. You just have food poisoning. Chill out. It's fine. But I just couldn't calm down. I felt so scared. I have never felt terror like that. It was the most scared I've ever been, and it was just because I had food poisoning. I was so fucking scared, and I was just a mess. After that, it was probably one of the worst years of my life. It was, When I started looking back at that moment that I got sick on Christmas, like, I realized I felt like my life was in danger because I had been brought back to where I was as a kid, and I was confused, and I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was dying because I thought it was happening again, but it wasn't. I was just sick. I think the important thing I need to do is separate those two things, you know, vomiting from dying, because my brain has formed a connection with them. So, you know, I thought that I was dying. I really thought that I was dying. The years following what happened on Christmas were really hard, because I realized vomiting is just a normal part of life, and I'm probably gonna have to deal with it again, but every single time it happens, I feel like I'm actually dying, and to be hit with the feeling like you are dying is not great. So it was just really fucking hard. I was struggling. I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't eat. I lost 70 pounds after what happened on Christmas happened. I felt sick every single day. I was a shell of who I was. Just because I got food poisoning on Christmas, basically. It's funny to say it out loud because it's so ridiculous, but I was inconsolable. There was no way for me to calm down, and I just realized, like, I need to see a trauma therapist because this makes sense. Like, what happened to me has made me the way that I am. It was really hard to seek it out because I'm just like, I don't want to be like judged for this because it's so ridiculous. It's like getting PTSD from, well, not PTSD from throwing up, but PTSD just from an incident that involves throwing up, I guess. But, you know, it was silly to talk about or like to put into words, but first I got my diagnosis, but I ended up seeking help related to PTSD, and it just about saved my life. The therapy that I did was very odd, and I didn't think that it would work, but it did. Okay, so first I had a psychiatrist, and I was just trying to explain to her the situation, and she was like, damn, I think you have PTSD. And I'm like, oh, seriously? I thought I just had a phobia. And she was like, no, did anything weird happen in your life? And I was like, oh my god, yes, something weird and bad did in fact happen in my life. And the next step was like trying to figure out if there were specialists for PTSD. And of course there are, because there's specialists for every like mental health condition. I was at that point where I was suffering so much that I was just like, I'm willing to try fucking anything. You could do hypnotherapy with me, you could do whatever, you could put electrodes to my brain. I was so sick with everything and just so tired of suffering, and I was just like, you can do fucking whatever. Like, we can do whatever. I will put in the work because I want to get better. I was not functioning as an adult. I learned about this really weird thing called EMDR. As much as I want to right now, I can't tab out and figure out what it stands for, but it's a trauma therapy where they use this big rectangular box, and it's got 2 lights on it, and you put these headphones on. It's really, really weird. You put these headphones on, and you hear the dot moving from left to right. It goes bam, 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 bam. It's like this rectangle, and you just stare at it, and it's got like moving lights on it, and I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous, but sure, I'll try it, why not? I had no idea, but all I read online was these people that were saying like, you know, I went through this, I went through that, I'm a combat veteran, and EMDR saved me, whatever, and I'm just like, oh my god, okay, fine, I'll give it a shot, you know, like, what do I have to lose at that point? I went in, and my EMDR therapist was a kind of a lovable goofball, and she understood how weird I thought it was, and she was just like, look, you just gotta trust the process. Like, you're gonna do fucking awesome. It's gonna be painful, and we're gonna bring up things that are really gonna hurt, but you're gonna do great. I'm like, all right, I'll trust the process. When I first started it out, it made me feel like shit. I had nightmares from it. I was scared in public. I would be so hypervigilant. I would be looking at everybody, because I get nervous when I see people throw up in public, even though it's not me, because I'm like, what if they could transfer something to me? So like, I would look at people and I would be like, are they looking okay? Is everything fine? Making sure I didn't hear any like vomit noises, which is so ridiculous. Like, that is preposterous. Trying to make sure I didn't like eat at restaurants that might make me sick, whatever. I was so vigilant. And I would notice that as I keep going to these meetings and staring at the light box, she would bring up things that would make me uncomfortable, and she would keep doing it. And that's part of the EMDR. You watch the light box, you watch it go back and forth and back and forth, and then your therapist will prompt you to explain things like the worst of the worst, and she'll make it more painful as it goes on. So in a way, it's silly, but it does get really torturous. I mean, she tells you can stop whenever, but it is like a fight. You have to keep explaining things that hurt, and you have to just keep going and keep explaining, focus on the light box. It was weird. It was like fucking piloting an Eva. She would be like, what's going on? How are you feeling? How did this make you feel? Whatever. And I just have to keep looking at the light box, moving back and forth and back and forth. I got to this point where I was so sick of it, and I was pissed off at her, actually. I would go in there and I'd be like, this isn't working. This just makes me feel worse. And then I didn't realize until during the summer that it was making me more normal. I could go out and I would feel good looking at things, and I would not focus on the pain, and it was making me less sick too. So I was able to like eat normal things. So it's really weird because I have no explanation of why it helped me. It just did. Like I would just, like about a year passed of doing that, or maybe like, actually I think it was around 8 months of doing that. And I was just starting to like do normal shit. Like, hang out with my friends and like eat out at restaurants and not feel as sick. So I don't, you know, I still don't quite understand the science that goes into EMDR, but it fucking works. And if it doesn't work for some people, that's okay, and that makes sense, and it's really hard and you have to put work into it, but it really saved me in that moment. It really saved me.
What's an Eva? Is that from Evangelion?
Yes, yes. I watched Eva this December, and honestly, that shit upset me so bad. But yeah, like, it's amazing, but you'll feel like shit for a while after. Hey, just like EMDR.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
Crows and ravens remember faces. So if you do something nice to them, they'll remember. And if you do something shitty to them, they'll also remember. So be on your best behavior.